Good morning, guys. Good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Okay, we're going to wait for people a little bit. We only got a handful in here so far. Good morning, Maria. Jasmine, good morning. Lucas, good morning. Luis, good morning. Esmeralda, good morning. My cat's here. Okay. Quick hit today, quick lecture today. Just going to talk briefly about diabetes. Quick assignment, and then we're done for the week. No class Wednesday, right? Thanksgiving Eve. And then next week, last week of instruction, last week of school. Yeah, she's a relatively cute cat. Come here. Come on. And then, yeah, I mean, this is kind of the end. For the most part, we're done. Went by relatively quick, I think, for most of us, but, sometimes the semester can drag on a little bit. I've heard of no changes to the spring semester as far as format. So, we're pretty much looking at the same situation next semester, as far as I know. And I think the reason why is, I mean, even if there was a little bit of a calming of the coronavirus, they don't want to interrupt the semester. In other words, if they start remote, they're going to finish remote. If for some reason you happen to be one of the people who are able to be on campus for a class, like some of the nurses and EMT, fire people, police people, some of the athletes, sports, they're still trying to figure out sports and compete and all that kind of stuff. If you happen to be one of those people, that could be shut down depending on the severity of kind of what's going on with COVID and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, the way they start a semester, they want to finish a semester. So more online stuff. While we're waiting, just one quick minute, if you can switch over to the page called diabetes. Just again, quick lecture. I've got family coming into town today. I'm sure all y'all are trying to get your holiday going as quickly as possible. Hopefully you guys don't have too much work. Good morning, guys and gals. Good morning. Hopefully you don't have too much work this week. It'd be nice to kind of just have a holiday and take a little break from the devices. But but so is, right? So find the page diabetes, and let me explain some of the graphics. Let me explain what's going on with diabetes and some of the things to pay attention to. And your assignment is going to be on the symptoms. So real easy assignment, but kind of crucial, because the symptoms of diabetes should not be ignored. In other words, be aware of the symptoms of diabetes. And if you experience those, especially if you start to experience them relatively frequently, and let's say you are someone, especially someone who's overweight, you don't have to be, good morning, Elena, you don't have to be overweight to have diabetes, but especially if you are overweight and you have these symptoms and you're having these symptoms regularly, definitely worth getting checked out. Just because diabetes is a big problem in America now because of our weight, essentially. But the projections of diabetes are going to go through the roof. In other words, many generations of children, the past few generations of children are already significantly heavier than their parents and their grandparents. In other words, people are getting showing signs of diabetes at younger and younger ages than they ever have. So the projections for diabetes in the next 10, 15, 20, 30 years are absolutely through the roof. So let's go into it. Hopefully you found your page. So let's just really quickly figure out, good morning, or really quickly talk about what diabetes is and what's happening during diabetes. So it doesn't matter what type of diabetes it is, whether it's type 1, type 2, or gestational. What's going on is the pancreas. My cat is wanting to get out of the room. What's happening is the pancreas. Go on, out, go on, go. The pancreas is responsible for producing insulin. Insulin is a hormone that kind of acts like a catalyst. In other words, it's a hormone that allows us to convert sugar to fuel, that actually allows you to take sugar out of the bloodstream and use it for energy. So, and what happens is the pancreas, like any other tissue in the body, is not immune to inflammation, right? It is not immune to, good morning, guys. It's not immune to damage, to overusage, to genetic issues, just like every other tissue in your body. So knowing that the pancreas produces insulin to meet levels of sugar and to use those sugars, that's kind of our starting point with diabetes. The second thing to know about diabetes is just what's the difference between the types. So type 1 is what we call gestational diabetes, or excuse me, scratch that. Type 1 is what we call juvenile diabetes. It's commonly referred to as juvenile diabetes. And the reason why is because most people with juvenile diabetes or type 1 diabetes find out that they have diabetes at a very young age, typically around the teen years, maybe into your early 20s. Type 1 diabetes is an autoimmune disease. So what do I mean by that? Autoimmune means that for some reason your body thinks that there's something going on wrong, and it's an overactive immune response to something like your pancreas, or other autoimmune diseases are like colitis, Crohn's disease. So your body thinks there's something wrong with your bowels. Another autoimmune disease is rheumatoid arthritis. So if you've ever known anyone with rheumatoid arthritis, their joints have a lot of inflammation. They're getting attacked by the immune system. plaque psoriasis and things of that nature. Those are all autoimmune. That red patches on the skin, on the arms, and stuff like that. Those are an autoimmune response. So type 1 is an autoimmune response. So what's happening is either your pancreas is being attacked by your white blood cells and it can't produce enough insulin, or there's times where the insulin produces is insufficient, but for some reason it's whatever it is, for some reason the insulin it's not able to be produced, or it's not able to work, and therefore sugar levels have a tendency to increase. And we can't have really, really high sugar levels in our systems for very long periods of time. It actually causes a ton of damage, right? A ton of damage. We don't expel sugar as well as we do protein and fat. There's something about sugar that the human body isn't used to having. Genetically, evolutionary speaking, we're not used to having high sugary foods at our disposal all the time, right? So we don't do well with a lot of sugar. So again, type 1 diabetes is really it's an autoimmune issue. You'll most likely find out at a very young age. Type 2 diabetes is the exact opposite. Type 2 diabetes, for the most part, happens to people in their older years, 30, 40, 50, 60 years old. However, like I said, there's more and more young people showing signs of type 2 diabetes, more so at higher numbers than with their parents or with earlier generations. And what type 2 diabetes is, it's the same thing. It's a retardation or a denigration of our pancreas's ability to produce insulin and have that insulin used effectively to burn sugar. However, contrary to type 1, type 2 is a result of lifestyle. It's a result of not maintaining your weight, of sedentary life. In other words, not exercising. And, this term starting to be thrown around, insulin resistant. In other words, your body, you have so much sugar, your body doesn't respond to insulin. And I don't know if that's entirely true. That seems to be the key phrase nowadays. But again, there's an inflammatory issue going on in the pancreas when we consume too much sugar, especially processed sugar. So I don't necessarily know if it's just an issue of insulin resistance. What it is an issue of just being overweight, over-consuming calories, over-consuming foods that we shouldn't be eating. Now, type 1 diabetes is the smaller percent of the diabetes. In other words, it makes up no more than 5% of global cases. Type 2 diabetes is more like 90% of global cases. In other words, places like America, South America, Africa. I believe there are some places in the Southeast Asian islands and islanders, a lot of type 2 diabetes there, an issue of lifestyle, of just consuming too many calories. Then we have gestational diabetes, and I don't know all the ins and outs of gestational diabetes, but it has to do with being pregnant. And we know that the body kind of can go a little chaotic in pregnancy. And a lot of hormonal issues going on, and insulin is a hormone. Gestational diabetes, the fear of gestational diabetes obviously is the child, carrying a child to full term. But women, upon exiting the birthing cycle or giving birth and moving on, they are at a higher risk of being diabetic later on. So again, eating well, managing your intake, limiting
the amounts of sugary calories that we're just getting every day from processed sources. I mean, again, that's why I've said eliminate juice and milk and bread and cereals, those things, tortillas, like just on a daily basis. You don't have to remove them from your diet completely, but not having cereal every morning, and bread every morning, or whatever it is, orange juice or your frappuccino every day. Eliminating those every single day is crucial. The other thing to keep in mind is the amount of calories you just consume in general. There's a lot of science that is going back and forth. I mean, I've listened to podcasts and I've seen lectures and things of this nature that people are arguing, well, it's fat, or it's sugar, or it's this or that. The one thing that all those people can agree on is the overconsumption of calories, right? So if you're someone who is overweight, especially in your midsection, that's where you're carrying a bulk of the fat, you have a metabolic issue. You have probably a pancreatic issue. In other words, you're not able to keep up with the amount of calories that you're putting into your body. So making sure that, I hate to say this, but start counting your calories is one way to do it. But another way to do it is just start peeling back from some of your meals a little bit. Just peel back. If you have a soda for lunch, eliminate the sodas. No more sodas. There's so many options to sodas now that are just as satisfying. If you're a cereal everyday person, wake up in the morning, have your cereal. Change that up. Have eggs one morning and a banana. Or, I mean, you get the point. If you're someone who has a tendency to eat a lot of Chinese food, right? You know what I mean. Just peel back from some of the habits that you've created, and you'll most likely see a weight drop, right? Obviously cutting something out completely will give you a more dramatic weight drop than just kind of peeling back, but that's fine. Peeling back and over time reducing less calories and have your weight come down is relatively, it's healthy, it's normal, it's fine. So with that said, type 1, genetic for the most part, a lot of genetic implications. In other words, they don't really know we still don't know why we have autoimmune diseases. We don't know why people have type 1 diabetes, have colitis, have Crohn's disease, have rheumatoid arthritis, have plaque psoriasis, have lupus, all these autoimmune diseases. All we know is they're more rampant in developed countries than they are underdeveloped countries. So there are more people in America per capita that suffer from an autoimmune disease, let's say in the United States, than in Peru, right? Or Argentina, right? Or Belize. That's all we really know about autoimmune diseases. And type 1 is an autoimmune disease. You'll typically find out at a young age. That's why we call them juvenile diabetes. Type 2, a disease of lifestyle, overconsumption of calories, overconsumption of processed foods, not enough fiber in your diet. You're killing yourself by eating. Essentially, you're taking years off your life. Every pound you gain higher into a higher BMI, into a higher body weight, you're losing years on your life. You're losing days on your life, right? The key term around that these days happens to be insulin resistance. I'm not so sure. I have a feeling there's an inflammatory thing going on there as well. But ultimately, what you need to do is not only reduce your caloric intake, but reduce the amount of carbohydrate that you're taking in, especially processed carbohydrate. And then there's gestational diabetes, which can happen when you're pregnant during your pregnancy. Okay, I'm going to stop talking because you're probably getting bored. So here's your homework. I want you to list 3 symptoms of number 1, type 1, diabetes of type 2, diabetes, I can't type, and of gestational diabetes. Okay, that's all you got to do. You're going to list 9 symptoms, 3 of them for type 1, 3 of them for type 2, 3 of them for gestational. That's it. That's all you got to do today. That's all you got to do this week. Happy Thanksgiving. Later, skater.